The Morgan Thomas Show. Brought to you by Black's Tire Inc.
Whoa. Okay. Here we go. It's the Morgan Thomas Show. I'm your host and producer, Morgan Thomas, as long as I don't screw things up. But as always, we welcome you in. We're going to be talking all things Clemson football, basketball, and maybe eventually baseball, softball, and all the other sports as well. But thank you so much for joining in. We hope you had a good week so far. I know it's the start of the week, but we really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us here on a Tuesday night, considering we moved over from Monday night to Tuesday night so we could better partner with our friends over at the Roar. There is a ladies basketball game on tonight, so if you're watching that, we understand, but we will be talking about Clemson athletics and some things that are going on in the news right now. Big things in the news. Got transfer news. Got a player that is leaving Clemson University's football team via the transfer portal. We've got head coaching vacancy news. We got a coach that might be the next head coach somewhere else. Maybe, maybe not. We'll talk about that. And then we've got Clemson basketball on the skid of all skids, and we will be talking about that as well. Get in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and what questions you have tonight. We will try to answer them as we go. It is a roundtable style show. We do not want to just be the ones talking here tonight. We want to get your opinions in as well. And also, we want to get in other people that are Clemson fans as well. The best way to do that is to make sure to like and subscribe and share whatever way you can to help get us out. The easiest way is to click that like button, because the like button, apparently, the more you have, the more Facebook says you're good and you're not weird, and we'll send you out to other people. And if you share it yourself, then your actual friends that you have on Facebook or YouTube or wherever will be able to see it. So invite a friend to come along and talk about the Clemson Tigers. But again, my name is Morgan Thomas. We are here. And joining me, you can see, is two other gentlemen, also Clemson graduates. We've got in the middle there, Big Al, Alan Adams. Welcome to the show, Al.
Hey, it's been a while. I got to be honest. We had the week off, and then we had the technical issues last week. Apparently, Google Chrome does not like StreamYard for me anymore. So we're going to rock it with Firefox, as our producer was able to fix this thing with me on the computer last night. So I appreciate that. Glad to be back. Looking forward to talking some Clemson, man.
7 years working at Verizon Wireless, and, you know, I ought to be able to fix a Chrome browser issue. Also on the far left or far right, however you're looking at your screen, we've got, wait a minute. I don't want to call you far left or far right. I saw you give me a little bit of look like, don't call me far left. Don't call me far left. But over there on the far right side is Mr. There is literally no win when you call somebody that.
No. We're not far on either side. We're just happy to be here. I'm just glad to talk about Clemson sports, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. A lot of crazy stuff going on around the program. We're just happy to be here tonight.
We'll just call you the boundary receiver over there. The boundary.
The boundary. Yeah, I'm
the slot host. You're the boundary.
Yeah, I'm the Z guy.
Oh man! But thank you so much for getting in. We have our chat running wild over here, so let's check it out and see. So we've got Bill. As Al likes to say, Wild Bill. You want to introduce him? He's up on the screen, and then Kevron gets in. We got a couple of guys that are in early as well. Steven and John, thank you so much for joining in again. Give us a shout out. Let us know where you are, where you're from, and who you are, and then any questions you may have as well. So we really appreciate it. But before we get into anything, we always want to give some props to our primary show sponsor, and that is Black's Tire Inc. Family owned and operated since 1971. If you need new tires, brakes, alignment, tire repair, or just looking for a friendly professional to help answer your questions, check out Black's Tire Inc., located 1415 East Main Street, Westminster, South Carolina. Again, give them a call, 864-647-9292. Let Dale and Preston know that the Morgan Thomas Show sent you. All right, guys, let me move the screen around here. Let me move us around. We'll get our all right. That's more traditional.
There we go.
More traditional view. We got 7 likes. Let's get some more likes. We got about 30 something people watching. 7 likes. Let's get some more likes in there. Let's start off with the first topic of the night. And I was going to start with Mike Jones Jr. Let's hold that for a second. Let's talk about the basketball team going on the epic skid of all skids, as I mentioned, not on a run that you want to talk about. But, Bill gets on to me about not talking about basketball till the very end of the show. So we'll go ahead and talk about it at the beginning of the show. Go figure. I want to do this when they're, playing horribly. Not only can they not shoot, but they've seemed to have forgotten how to play defense as well, giving up almost 100 more points to the opposing three teams that they've played. They got blown out by Virginia. We watched that game. My daughter told me, she said, Dad, she was cheering for the Tigers and I realized she couldn't read the scoreboard and because they were down by like 20. And I said, well, you know what? I told Audrey, I said, that's probably the best way to watch games like this is just pretend like you can't read the scoreboard and just be thankful that you're watching Clemson play a sport. Because as we know with COVID, you may not always get a chance to watch your team play. And I will say, when you don't think about the scoreboard, they did look really nice in those throwback jerseys against Virginia. So what's your thoughts so far about this skid that they've been going on? We'll start with you, Al.
Yeah, let's save Houston for last because he has some strong feelings about this. Yeah, it's been tough to see, man. They started out so well. They were looking so good. We talked about them preseason about how deep they were and how talented they could potentially be. I don't think Alamir Dawes has taken that step that we had looked for, which I'm surprised by. Especially, I think Terrence Oglesby had mentioned, how he's going to be a problem for people. I mentioned it, and I haven't seen it from him like I thought we would see it in his sophomore season. So that's been kind of tough. And we haven't been able to shoot consistently, which has been a problem for years with this team. I think this team had a chance to make some noise in an NCAA tournament, if they're able to go on a run. But the one thing I thought, before the season could prevent this team from doing it is consistent shooting. And that's exactly what we've seen so far. So it's kind of frustrating that they just cannot, they're not even hitting open shots for the most part. They're getting wide open threes and just flat out missing them. It's kind of rough to watch. Amir Sims, I don't think has been playing very well. Admittedly, I didn't get to see the last game, so I'm not entirely sure how he did there. But he hasn't taken the step as a senior that I thought he would take either, especially when a campaign he's trying to get to the NBA. And it just hasn't looked good. It's looked really disjointed. They haven't looked like they wanted to be there really these past few weeks, which is pretty shocking. So it's been tough. It's been tough, especially with how good they started. I mean, I think they were ranked 12th. And now they're completely out with 3 blowout losses, and now they got to go play Louisville tomorrow. So it's not getting any easier, unfortunately. But I'm sure hoping they can turn around because I'll be pulling for them as always.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing. I think as a longtime Clemson basketball fan, and fans as a whole, we were starting to get to the point where we're like, hey, this could be a turnaround year. Something that we can build on. We've got depth. I believe that this team is the most talented that Brad Brownell's had. And I do believe that this team has depth to make a run and be a conference title contending team. The same team that got blown out by Florida State this past weekend beat them by 10 just a couple weeks ago. But I don't know exactly what's happened. I mean, I know COVID, and everybody would say, hey, COVID came in and it's supposed to wipe you out. But we watched Georgia Tech not play for 27 straight days and then beat Clemson like a ran mule, hitting their open shots. And I feel like this team is lethargic, and not just the way that they play and shoot, but almost the way they prepare. I mean, the first shot Virginia took last Saturday, not this past one, the last one, it was just like, okay, Virginia's best shooter is Hauser. Don't leave him wide open. And what do they do on the very first possession? They leave Hauser open. He hits a wide open 3. And they're doing that the last 3 games. They're allowing the best players to get open. They're not doing anything about it. The offense is very lazily contrived. They're passing up shots they shouldn't pass up, and they're not hitting, like Al said, easy shots they should be able to hit. And I mean, I don't want to dive too much into it. I don't want to stir up too much controversy, but
oh no, don't hold back.
Look, I'm just saying there are players that we think should have developed under this current regime that have not, and this has been the same sore spot for 11 years now. I'm not saying anything about changes or anything like that. I'm just saying, take it or leave it. There's been 11 years with the current regime, and there's been no change. Every time the fan base gets their hopes up, you get a win over Louisville or Miami, and when they were ranked North Carolina, all that, and then the rug is always pulled out from the fan base. 2 NCAA tournament appearances in 11 years, and Amanda Butler is on the precipice of taking the women's team to the NCAA tournament for the second time in 3 years. But just take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with your feeling as a fan for sure, because I was one of those guys before the season started where I thought, Nick Honor is going to be a huge help. Hall is going to be a huge help to Amir Sims, who had to do literally everything. And I mean, for the most part, I mean, they went 9 games. They have nine wins so far, and they have found kind of a problem. And I think it goes back to the way we treated football too. You've got to be careful saying that, and Al just disappeared, but you've got to be careful saying that. Hopefully he'll be able to get back in, but you got to be careful saying that they are the teams are just playing perfect and you had a bad night, because now we got 3 games into it. The teams have played perfect and you've got another bad night. So it's something that you got to be careful with. But I will say, when you look at the stat sheet, Houston, it is hard when the other teams are shooting, better than their season average by 20%.
Yeah, but I mean, look, you can say that, and fool me once, like Virginia is on a hot streak. I'll say that Virginia is killing everybody right now, and that might have been destined to be, whether or not COVID happened or not. But Georgia Tech, I mean, where's our defense? Florida State was – you look at the shooting averages, and it's not just because they're hitting wide open threes or anything. Florida State was driving it right down Broadway and taking easy shots, and Clemson wasn't defending. No defense whatsoever. Where's the defense? All right, we're built around defensive principles and trying to slow it down and play at our tempo, and we can't do that. We can't hit shots and we can't defend. So what are we doing, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at and then they were originally going to play BC. They get postponed, which was a team that maybe they could have rebounded against. Now they're going to play Louisville, 10-3 overall. And, Louisville struggled against Florida State and Miami. They lost there, but then they beat Duke 70-65. This really is another one of those even games as far as Vegas is concerned. But for me, I mean, it's just – I don't really know. When I watch Brad Brownell's press conference, one thing I will say about Brad Brownell is he is very transparent. He will tell you exactly how he feels, exactly what he thinks is going on. And the kind of thing that makes you a little, I don't know, just have some pity is that even he is like, they just kicked our tail. They had their shooting percentage from the field. We actually were doing good on rebounds. We're doing good on fouls. We're doing good at the free throw line, but they shot, 50% from 3-point land. Clemson went, what was it, against Florida State, guys? What was it, like 2 for 27 or 4 for 27 was one of their scoring streaks? I mean, that is just horrible. He mentions, he says, hey, we try to set up things to get easy baskets. We can't get easy baskets. We try to set up things to keep people from getting open. They still get open. So my only thing is that they've got to go back to the basics. I mean, and the unfortunate thing is, going back to what Houston said, is that this does happen pretty regularly. I guess every year there is a point in the season where it seems like, oh man, Clemson's got to get back to basics. Last year, December sucked, and Clemson figured it out in January and did well. And what I thought they were going to do really well in the ACC tourney, and then it got canceled, right? This year, Clemson surprisingly did well at the very beginning against ACC teams. It was one thing to say they did well against non-ACC teams, but then when they started beating ACC teams and they beat Alabama, you're like, okay, all right, well, they're doing really well, and now they've got to figure out January. I'd like to just see January get past this. Let's see if they can maybe reset just on a new month. Maybe just whatever you can do to mentally reset. But But let us know what you think. Let me pull up the comments real quick and get some shout outs to some people who are jumping into the comments. Mark Childress says, fellas. Well, welcome to the show, Mark. We appreciate it. Casey Cregan says, why are PJ Hall and Amir Sims not on the floor at the same time ever? Question mark. Feels like it could be close matchup issues. I think earlier on in the season, they were on the court more. I haven't really paid attention to that as much as maybe I should, but I felt like that they were out there the majority of the time. Or Amir Sims wasn't out there because he was almost fouled out. So, maybe that's something too.
Yeah.
Mitch Matt gets in, says, what's up, friends? Or hello, friends.
Yeah, hello.
And
reading is hard.
Reading is very hard. And Bill gets in and says, it's like our benefit of having some depth is backfiring because whatever five are on the floor and they're not playing well together. I'll pass that one around. Houston, what do you think there?
Yeah, well, I mean, depth doesn't really matter if nobody's good or playing well. I mean, when the year started, you watch them play Purdue and Mississippi State, and you're like, man, look at this. We got 12 guys we can put on the court, and they're killers. And now you're like, man, we got 12 guys on the court, and none of them can guard a soul. So, it doesn't matter if you're deep or not. If you can't defend and you can't hit shots, you're going to get beat by 30 all the time, and that needs to get figured out quick.
Yeah, without a doubt. I've actually been looking at this comment for quite some time, waiting for the perfect time to show it, because I think there's certainly a point here is that we've had this seemingly all this depth, and when I'm watching substitutions, I'm seeing Brownell substitute like the whole team at a time. It's like 3-4 guys are coming in at a time, and it's really hard to get any cohesiveness that way. It's hard to learn how to play together. The best five on the floor. That's a tough thing to navigate. Obviously, if you don't give people their playing time, then they'll up and leave on you, and that's kind of something I've also noticed. The past couple of games, I think it was the Florida State game, I believe was the last one that I got to see, was we were 6 or 7 minutes into the game. We couldn't score at all, and I haven't seen Nick Honor yet. I'm like, he's our best scorer. Where is he? Why is he not starting these games? He's literally your best offensive option, and he's not on the floor. I don't understand that. I mean, you're starting Trapp and Dawes instead, and I don't get it. I'm not exactly sure, what I'm missing there, because there's a pretty good chance I'm missing something, but I don't know what it is. I just think he needs to be on the floor first by far. I mean, I get it. You can kind of hold him out, and then he can come in with fresh legs and maybe do some damage, but I just want him out there to start with. Go ahead, Houston.
I would say Honor and Hall need to be playing more and honestly need to be starting. I don't know how you do it. Hall has been the most consistent freshman. That kid is a stud. Like, he's a game-changing freshman that we have. And I feel like the talent we have on this especially freshman talent, is getting wasted with just lazily contrived offenses. I mean, we come to a point in the year where we're not hitting shots or anything, and it's this swing at the top and then kind of sit there until the last second. Or the thing that drives me the most crazy as someone who likes a ton of points is passing up open shots. Our offense tends to pass up open, or Clemson's offense tends to pass up open shots just to get somebody to jump out of position. And it's understandable and do that sometimes, but I feel like 10, 15 times a game we're passing up shots. Clemson's passing up shots that they need to go ahead and take it. You got to open three, take it. I know they're missing it, but instead of taking that open pass, maybe if you just get it and shoot, then you might actually hit it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and then like I said, it's not going to get any better because they've got to play Louisville tomorrow night. And one thing that Brad Brownell also mentioned is that they had their assistant coaches were already prepping for Boston College and had been doing so for the past 2 days. And so now they're having to kind of reset and prep for a completely different team. So you got to think that's not going to help at all. Scott Bennett gets in and says, kills me to watch them shoot and hardly any rebounding. Why has that changed? I don't know. I mean, I think with Florida State and Virginia, it was really, I mean, we got there has to be some admission to the fact that those two teams were preseason the best two teams in the ACC. I'm not saying that it gives you the pass to get blown out, but they definitely, I think 9 times out of 10 should beat Clemson, this Clemson team. And, were better matchups against this Clemson team who, hasn't really ever had a couple of big guys down low. I mean, they've kind of had to make do with Amir Sims at center, who's not really a center, and Virginia and Florida State. I mean, Florida State has like 7 foot tall guys. I know that's exaggeration, but I think they at least,
really.
I believe last time I looked, they have 3. So,
I mean, they got like a 6'8" point guard. Like their guard. I will say, Florida State's length is one of the most spectacular, insane things I've ever seen in my life, and that's been that way for almost a decade now.
Oh yeah,
that's the way Leonard Hamilton does it, and it's starting to pay off for them. I guess the frustration there is, okay, how come we can't get a big man? And I mean, when we do, it's someone who doesn't last, or someone who's just kind of we're up at 30 with 30 seconds left. Let's toss them in there.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to name names, but somebody who can't move, can't dribble and walk at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to name names either, but I mean, you see, when we're searching through TigerNet or whatever, and you see, oh my gosh, we just landed this 7'1" guy from wherever. This guy's good. This is going to bring us home, guys. This is going to bring us home. It doesn't pan out, and now we're playing someone who is not meant to be a center, or really a 4. Amir Sims is meant to be a 3-4 kind of combo forward in that way, and he's not meant to play center. PJ Hall is probably a better center option, considering that he did a little bit more of that in high school. But even him, he's more meant to be like a 4-ish kind of player.
Right.
So, like, what's happening on the recruiting trail or the transfer portal or something? We're bringing guys off the transfer portal. Why can't we get like a 7-footer?
Well, I will say that Brad Brownell does a pretty good job at the transfer market. Maybe him and Brad Dabo Sweeney need to start talking, because Dabo is going to need to start learning how the market works and how to land some big guys. I will say, if you look at who else, what else could you do? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say these droughts are all like coaching problems. I mean, sometimes team just can't do it. And he did mention too, he's like, you look at it, you see these guys come out here and pop 3 threes in a row. And then, you guys know how it is in basketball. The other team knocks down something like that, 3 in a row. And then all of a sudden they got to hop in their step. And you're like, oh man, how this is we're going to be in this for the long haul. And then when you try to answer back and you like maybe completely airball, it makes it even worse. Then on top of that, the crowd is not really there. I mean, they are there at Clemson more than other places. But there's a lot going wrong with this team about being able to get back into it and fight back from behind. They really, I don't know any Brad Brownell team that can really fight back from behind like a big deficit that I remember. I don't know if you guys know of any that I know, but anyways, well, let's move on to some of our second segment or second question sponsors real quick, and then we'll keep on going. But let me tell you about the Charleston Sports Pub. 359 College Avenue, Clemson, South Carolina. Charleston Sports Pub of Clemson. They have one in downtown Clemson. You can go catch some great food there. And then they also have one in downtown Greenville as well. If you're a Greenville-based Clemson Tiger fan, go check them out there. And then if you're down in the lower part of the state, they have a couple. As you can tell, their name is the Charleston Sports Pub. So they have a couple from down there as well. So go check them out. We appreciate Perry. And as you can see, not only do we dine there, but Clemson legends dine at the Charleston Sports Pub. And then our other sponsor, Tiger Sports Shop. We don't just dress for success, we TS for success. Tigersports.com. Go check out Tiger Sports, Clemson Boulevard or Tiger Boulevard and downtown Clemson, or Tigersports.com. Every one of us, all 3 of us tonight, are wearing Tiger Sports Shop gear. So we like to support them, and we appreciate you supporting them as well. Okay, so the second topic, let me get back in the comments here. We had a good conversation about basketball. So nobody can pick on me for never talking about basketball. But the next thing up is Mike Jones Jr. We got a transfer guy leaving Clemson, a starter. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, we bragged about Clemson being able to return all 11 starters on defense. And now Clemson will not be able to. A former 4-star recruit, top 250 player in the nation as he was recruited. He was a starter, like I said, played a ton of snaps, I think over 400 snaps this past season. But there are some things that we'll get into, I'm sure. Let us know what you think. Are you worried? Are you concerned about the fact that Clemson loses Mike Jones Jr.? Let us know in the comments what you think over on Facebook, YouTube, or Periscope. And then make sure you like the video as well and share it with your friends. But we'll get into this second question of the night. I'll start with Houston this time. Is this something? Why do you think he's transferring, and is this something that should be a concern as a Clemson fan?
No, I'm not concerned. And I think the easiest reason to see this is Trenton Simpson was starting to take snaps. I know that we say, oh, well, we don't have all 11 starters. I mean, it depends on who you view as your starter. Trent Simpson is coming back. And I believe I texted you this. I was like, Trenton Simpson is going to be your day one starter in the spring, regardless of if Mike Jones comes back or not. Trenton Simpson is going to be starting. He's going to be a freak athlete. And I think Mike Jones saw that. This isn't like an indictment on character or anything like that. I don't know what the kid necessarily was doing, but from what I understand, from what I've seen on social media, it sounds like he wanted to be a starter and he wanted that to be assured. I don't think he necessarily wanted to be in competition with someone who's going into their second year, who's going to be a freshman under the new COVID rules and all that with the eligibility. So he took his chance and he's going somewhere in the portal, and somebody's going to get a good linebacker.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're spot on there. I think he was a good linebacker. I thought he was. I was really hoping this last season was going to be kind of his step into that senior year Dorian O'Daniel type. Where you really come out of nowhere. I don't want to say come out of nowhere. Dorian O'Daniel was always solid, but he really stepped out that last year and did a great job. And I thought Mike Jones was kind of on track to do that. The problem is Trenton Simpson was in the way, and Trenton Simpson was taking his snaps, and he was going to pass him. Again, I'm with Houston on that. I think he was going to be your starter regardless. It just hurts from a depth perspective. I think that's really it. I'm not concerned about it at all. Like somebody's getting a great linebacker, like Houston mentioned. I think he's 100% right on that. It was a little surprising to me. I was expecting attrition at linebacker, but not for Mike Jones. I was thinking it might be Levante Bentley, Kane Patterson, Keith McGuire, somebody who's not getting snaps that has talent to get enough snaps. So I was expecting one of those guys, especially when you have Skowski coming back as your starter at middle linebacker, and then you have Jake Venables, who's his backup. And you can debate whether he should or shouldn't be the backup. I like a couple others on the team better than him, but I would not have been surprised at all to see one of their names pop up and say they're in the transfer portal, and I still wouldn't if it happens from here. But Mike Jones was not one I was anticipating. I thought he carved out a good role here. I thought he was good in coverage. I thought he was good in run support as well. I thought he was a solid guy, and so somebody's getting a steal at linebacker if you ask me. But it was just interesting the way it worked out. But yeah, I wasn't expecting his name to pop up.
And one other thing about this is, and I don't know if he's on campus or not. I can't remember if he was on the list of this, but Barrett Carter, where does this factor in? I believe we're assuming that he's going to be in that position. And a lot of people saying that he's got the same type of talent that Trenton Simpson has. So are you battling two guys that are freakish athletes at linebacker? Maybe he just thought it was time to go somewhere else. I want to shout out. I'm going to put up this comment really, really quickly. John Chauncey saying MJ Jr. is graduating, 3 years eligibility left. It's like a second career somewhere else. I think that's a very logical explanation to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, the writing, unfortunately, let's start with the good things. Not one player has said anything bad about him on social media. They all wish him well. A lot of guys had a big connection with him, and Braden Galloway being one of those guys who wished him well and say loved him. And so you can tell these guys really cared about this, about Mike Jones Jr. And then you can also tell by who he was off the field. I mean, he was front and center, made sure to reach out to the media outlets about the rally that he wanted to put on after everything happened. He wanted to be something more than just known as a football player. And he wanted to lead the team off the field. And you got to respect the guy for that, whether or not you agree with what the situation was. I think we all want the world to change for a better. And Mike Jones definitely is one of those guys who wants that as well, but wasn't afraid to, walk the walk as talk the talk as well. So we are going to miss him. That's the first thing I posted was, hey, a lot of people love you and a lot of people are going to miss you. Definitely not a guy that you really are upset about. And it kind of brings up times where people have transferred or sat out when a situation didn't go their way. Now, this situation probably is not going his way. Hey, let's face it. He didn't start against Ohio State. That's a big deal. To start majority of this season and then not start against Ohio State, that's a big deal. Also, not only was he not starting towards the end of the season, he wasn't getting as many snaps. And at the end of the year, who had more tackles? Trenton Simpson had more tackles. Who had more sacks? Trenton Simpson had more sacks. Now, Mike Jones was known a little bit better in the coverage than Trenton Simpson is, but then in a lot of cases, you started to see Malcolm Green come into his own, as Alan has talked about since day one. So, is he getting replaced in the coverage situations by Malcolm Green? It looks so. Is he getting replaced in the blitzing, run-stopping situations by Trenton Simpson? It looks so. So it seems as if his, won't say the writing's on the wall because that's just so negative, but his playing time was dwindling, and statistically you can see not only was one player taking over, but two players. And then Houston has a great point. Barrett Carter is another 5-star guy that has earned that, and they think is recruiting-wise is listed as a linebacker because that's all he played really in high school, but believe that he's going to be another Isaiah Simmons type. Wait a minute. You heard me. Isaiah Simmons type. I mean, that is just scary in itself. Now, I don't want to give anybody too big of expectations and blow up their head before they start playing football, but that's a big deal. I don't know who, I guess Houston posted it, Clemson man, wish him best. So, that's true for sure as well over on Periscope. So thank you. Make sure you get in and like the video and appreciate that. Help us with the algorithms as well. We're still talking about Mike Jones Jr. Let us know what some of your comments are if you have any more. Again, I think somebody else posted in here that Mike Jones was a top 250 guy, while, Trenton Simpson is a top 50 guy, which is very true. Trenton Simpson, number one guy in the state, number one guy at that position, I believe, in the state. And so, definitely a top recruit that's going to fight for that time for sure. All right. So anything else, guys? Any other thoughts on Mike Jones? I'll say this let me respond to Alan's thought too about how it might've been a guy behind him or not a starter to leave. I kind of would say it doesn't shock me in the sense that it is, I think it makes more sense to leave when you are losing snaps than it does when you're somebody like Bentley, who's coming in late at games and putting people on notice, like, oh, that's number 42. Okay. You know what I mean? So Bentley, to me, stock is on the rise. Let us know what you think in the chat. Vonta Bentley, stock is on the rise for me. What do you think? You agree? Al, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly want to see him on the field more. I think we've mentioned this before on several shows that when he's in the game, he just seems to make plays. He's like a heat-seeking missile, and I absolutely love to watch this guy, and I want to see more of him for sure. But, what's the problem here, and one of the things you're going to see more and more going forward, especially with the new transfer portal rules and everything, is, look, Clemson goes out there on the recruiting trail each and every year to find somebody better than you. That's what they're there for. That's their job, okay? And when you find – Clemson is one of these teams who is at the top tier. I mean, they are the elite of college football with Alabama, Ohio State, these type of teams. They're getting a lot of top 50, top 100 type talent. And if you are a starter, as a Rivals 250 guy, there's a good chance that they're going to get somebody that's ranked a lot higher than you. And maybe, the rankings were wrong. Sometimes a top 250 guy can play like a top 5 guy. It just happens that way sometimes. But if you're a run-of-the-mill top 250 guy, 4-star type talent, there's a good chance Clemson's going to have somebody that's a 5-star type talent at that position, any given year. And Barrett Carter, the infusion of him is just another example to go along with Trenton Simpson. He's going to be a heck of a player too.
And I'll say this too, because this was kind of, I don't know if it was poor timing or not. Let me see. I don't want to put this up. Maybe I do. Yeah. Let's see if we can throw this up here real quick. I don't know if you can really see that, but basically it says, this is from Deshaun Williams. I don't know if you guys remember Deshaun Williams. Some of you newer fans might not remember him, but Deshaun Williams, let me see if I can make it bigger. Here we go. Deshaun Williams says, I get it. People transfer for better opportunities, but some just transfer because they thought it was going to be easy. Let me paint this for you. Every week, it was Grady, Josh, DJ, Carlos, and myself fighting just to start every week. LOL. Wasn't nothing easy. Remember, I said start, not just play. I want to say congrats to Ronaldo Hill and Coach Hill, you definitely deserve it. Hate to see you go. Okay, that was a previous comment, but the idea is that this is like 9 minutes after we found out about Mike Jones. So I don't know if it was directly targeted to Mike Jones, and I don't believe so, but I do think that it does warrant some discussion as well. There are people who just kind of, let's just say, Tate Martells of the world, who just bounce and leave and go to wherever they think they can become a starter, and it doesn't work out for them. I actually thought I saw somewhere where Tim Beret said that nobody who's transferred out of Clemson so far has played a snap in the NFL. So definitely not a guarantee that you're going to do better. Grass isn't always greener. What are your thoughts on that? We'll start with Houston.
Transferred out on their own volition, basically, is what the tweet said. So I know that there might have been someone who might have been a little bit swaggy back in the day, hint, hint, who did actually play. I think he might have started a game. I think Chad Kelly started a game, if not in the preseason. I know he's played, but Tim Bray's right.
You mean not forced out?
Yeah, not forced out, on their own volition, transferred out.
Well, that happens when you run into Miss South Carolina's car in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I remember. I was a senior. I was either a junior or senior. I was like, yay, when that was going on. But yeah, I know. So with the Deshaun Williams, I say he's got a point for this reason alone. This was before Deshaun Williams came along, before Clemson's ascent to the elite. He was on the 2014 defense, which, look, as great a defense as we've had in the past, and even that 2018 defense, I feel like the saltiest defense that Clemson's ever had in my lifetime was that 2014 defense. Those guys were some studs, and he mentioned them by name: Deshaun Williams, DJ Reader, Carlos Watkins. You had Grady Jarrett, and then that's just the interior. And you look at everybody else around there that was playing. That was a salty bunch. So to have someone like him who's been through it, and Deshaun Williams wasn't. I have to go back through, but I don't think he was this super highly touted guy coming in. He was somebody that was good.
I believe he was from Daniel.
He was from Daniel.
Yeah, so he was
a solid player, but that was about it.
Yeah, so you had that, and then there was others that were considered solid players, like Grady Jarrett was not highly rated. Now he just signed an extension with the Atlanta Falcons. So when you have players that have been able to develop in the system come out and be like, come on, man, like we were able to do this, and we're not as nearly as talented. They probably see the talent in these guys. So this isn't a throwing shade or a blame kind of deal, but I can understand the frustration of a former player who had to go through a grind like this, looking at someone who has a lot of talent and ends up just kind of bailing and going somewhere else.
Sure. I think we're about to see a lot more than, of that kind of stuff going on. And I'll tell you one thing, one of the reasons Clemson hasn't seen as much of it, and I understand they're going to see an uptick, and that's just going to happen with the rules, but I think Clemson will see less than anybody else because they specifically make sure that they are not recruiting these guys who will only come here because they can start and it's all about them. This is a team thing. This is a family thing. It's what Clemson preaches. It's part of their philosophy. So they really vet these guys to make sure that they are what they call a culture fit. Okay, so you're not going to have a lot of these defections like this, especially early on in their career. If they come here and they're a 5-star and they don't get to start immediately, you don't see a lot of those people just up and leave. We did have DeMarcus Bowman happen this year. I can't even remember the circumstances that surrounded that, or if we even know the true circumstances that surrounded it. But anyways, I just think Clemson goes through a long and drawn out process to make sure that doesn't happen, and that's why they're so good at keeping most of their guys.
Yeah, he was from Lakeland, right there in Gainesville, and the previous year, 3 of his best friends went to Florida, and then he decided to go to Clemson. It was kind of one of those things like, when he did decide, we were excited about it for sure, but you're kind of still like, yeah, are you sure? Like, most people want to hang out with their friends in college. I don't know about you, but, I think too, it goes back to when you have an elite team, you've got to decide. And that's what Clemson is learning, I think. I think Clemson doesn't have the answer to, but it is hard to decide who gets the snap. To be honest with you, maybe Bowman would have stayed if other running backs didn't get a bunch of snaps in garbage time. Maybe he should have gotten some snaps in garbage time, or, there were a couple of games where he could have gone out there and got one snap, and somebody else who really is never going to be a starter got 15, 16 snaps. It's kind of like, okay, well, when you're a guy and you're in a room of 8 running backs, you get kind of frustrated pretty quick. So same thing with linebacker. Linebacker is one of those things where they got a huge dump of big time recruits all at once. It seems like a couple of years ago, the Kane Patterson, Kevin Swint, it was like back to back to back, bunch of linebackers in two recruiting classes. And now you're to the point where, okay, you can only play 3 at a time. And sometimes if they're passing all over you, you're only going to play 2 at a time. And so you got to really start to think about what Clemson's going to do with the limited amount of players that they have. And then, the fact that they're recruiting top level guys for sure, like Houston said, aren't going to just stick around to be third string until they're a graduate. They're not going to do that. They're going to want to go somewhere else and try to, flourish somewhere else as a starter for a full time. I mean, I still can't necessarily blame Shaq Smith, but at the end of the day, I mean, he was a starter too. But they know as a player, okay, this guy's moving up the depth chart, and I'm making a ton of mistakes at practice, or I don't have really good film. My film's getting worse. They're getting better. So you kind of know what's going on, I'm sure, in that room. But again, thanks for so many of the comments, man. It's great. Huge night tonight. We popped up to about 40 watching total and drop back down. But make sure you give us a like and share and comment however you want. We really appreciate it. All the interaction is very helpful for sure with the show. Every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. All right, so let's tell you about our last 2 sponsors and get into our final topic, the big topic of the night, which is Mr. Tony Elliott and what are our thoughts on him. But before we do that, let me tell you about Daniel Weber State Farm, 518 College Avenue, Suite 190, Clemson, South Carolina, 29631. That's Daniel Weber State Farm Insurance, 864-722-9083 for all your insurance needs. This guy is also a Clemson grad. If you don't know, we are 3 Clemson grads here, and we like to support other Clemson grads as well as small business owners. So you got Daniel Weber there for home, auto, property, business, life, banking, annuities. Again, a 2011 graduate from Clemson. Go check him out, insuringclemson.com. We really appreciate him and all the support he does for our show. And so let Daniel know that you heard about him from the Morgan Thomas Show. Go get a quote. Go check it out. And give them a call. And if you look at the Google reviews, there's a ton of great reviews. Always say they're super nice, greet you with a smile, treat you well, and explain everything in detail. So go check them out there. And then Alan will tell you about our final sponsor of the night.
Yeah, Heating Cooling Services, Inc., serving Anderson County and surrounding areas since 1980. Heating Cooling Services, Inc. is your residential and commercial comfort expert. Anything from preventative maintenance of your home HVAC system to overhauling a commercial chiller or anything in between. If you want to breathe easier and be nice and cool in your home or business this summer, or warm and cozy in your home or business this winter, give Heating Cooling Services, Inc. a call. Their number is 864-224-7655. You're going to want to talk to Mark or Jason Trammell. Again, that number is 864-224-7655. Known these people a long time. They are good people. They'll take good care of you, and make sure you tell them that the Morgan Thomas Show sent you.
All right, fellas. So get in the chat. I know this is some controversial, I guess you could say, topic. Tony Elliott in the mention for the Tennessee job. Alan is the Tennessee fans' favorite Clemson fan. And as of last year, made a lot of Tennessee fans very, very angry. Speaking about was it last year or last summer? It was so far away, but
it was a while ago.
Alan mentioned to the Tennessee fans that this was actually this past summer, I believe. They had 4 or 5 recruits in a row, all in 1 week during COVID, and they landed them. Nobody thought to check the McDonald's bag until it was too late. But Tennessee is up for a bunch of sanctions, not just any sanctions, guys. Level 1, level 2. We're talking level 1, the most severe sanctions, the most severe violations, if you will. Level 2, very significant violations. So these are ones that, to the point that you cannot just play dumb private, as we say in the Army. These are ones that you blatantly ignored the policies and procedures in place, and in some ways approved and even encouraged the violation of those policies. We don't know what all is going to come down, but we know that it got Philip Fulmer retired, aka walked out, and we know that it got Jeremy Pruitt not only walked out, but walked out with his contract void. Okay, so the big deal coming out. Now they're looking for a coach and they're trying to go fast. They've already hired a well-respected AD and one from Central Florida that they think that is going to kind of turn things around really quickly. So before we get into the question of should Tony Elliott take the job, and if he has already taken the job, I don't know. I'm refreshing here. I don't see anything on my tweeters here. But before we get into that, how severe is this in your guys' eyes? I mean, is this something where they're gonna you expect them to get punished very, very heavily in the next, I don't know, Southern Cal style form? We'll start with you, Al.
Well, they should, but I doubt they will. I think if that was the case, I think UNC would have got the death penalty when, they had all their academic violations and all that stuff. I mean, if anything deserved the death penalty, it was that, and they came out with basically nothing. So I don't know. The NCAA is too unpredictable. They'll let a lot of this stuff slide, and then Georgia Tech, some guy sold a jersey for like a couple $100 and they got like vacated wins because of it. It's insane. The NCAA is a complete joke. They've been a joke for a long time. I really wish everybody would just pull away from the NCAA and tell them to fly a kite. But, it is what it is. I don't think they'll have anything major come of it. I certainly hope they get what they deserve. But, especially since the Tennessee fans, again, Tennessee would have been my second choice in school. So I have no reason to hate Tennessee, really. And I was called a clown. I was called irresponsible for all the stuff I was saying on the show. And to be fair, I want to make this point very clear. I never said Tennessee was cheating, okay? I thought it, but I didn't say it. I said I thought they were up on my list for doing some shady things in recruiting. You can do shady things in recruiting without cheating, okay? There are plenty of things you can do. You can offer, a million prospects or anyone that can breathe, which they do. I'm not saying that's what I was talking about. But, you can negative recruit other players or other schools, which a lot of people do. You can, have a bunch of players commit to you and then trim the fat at the end when a 4-star wants to commit late in the cycle or a 5-star wants to commit. Teams do it all the time. Some do it more than others. But I want to make that distinction that I didn't necessarily say they were cheating. But I did have some info that pointed to such, and here we are. So it's kind of is what it is. I like to hear some of those Tennessee fans now, but it's water under the bridge. We'll see what happens. NCAA is kind of balls in their court, but they never usually know what to do with it. They can't dribble very much either, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, easy there, Alan. You might end up with a flaming McDonald's bag of something that's not money or food.
That's right.
Here soon. I think Alan hit it right on the head. I think actually, honestly, they won't do anything. What they'll do, Tennessee will probably self-impose like a 1-year postseason ban and reduce some scholarships and yada, 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 the whole rigmarole that's just an eye roll into the back of your head. Just, even though they should be punished, but I don't think anything's going to happen. Look, the amount of scandal that's going on in college basketball with nothing being done, clear evidence that it's happening and nothing's being done. I have little faith that the NCAA is going to do anything major to Tennessee.
Yeah. John gets in over on Facebook. Breaking news, Mayor McCheese is the new UT compliance coordinator. Well, I'm glad they took the time to hire the right person for that situation there. Bill gets in too, just real quick, and he says, y'all remember that Tony Elliott has not made any comments that would lead anyone to believe that he is heading to Knoxville. Is he even interested? I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point because I see it on both sides. I see a lot of people saying, well, he's not mentioning anything. So this shows me that this is all hogwash. Now, I will tell you this. You see somebody post. Now, if you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter right now, and you see somebody by the name of, I don't know, John Loves Sports 467-367-93431 says Elliott just signed and he's on his way to Tennessee. First of all, before you print screen that and you share it to your friends, take a step back and say, is this credible? Okay. And the first thing you do is you click on their account. And if they have 3 followers and they've just started their account last month, no, they are not credible. It's almost like you're turning into your dad commercials. You know what I'm talking about? We got people that are turning into their dads, clicking share on these things, scaring the death out of everybody's mom who's on Facebook, talking about we're losing Tony Elliott. All right, now listen, if you get it from TigerNet, if you get it from Tiger Illustrated or 24/7 or the Clemson Insider or ESPN or The Roar or any of those places that have been guests on our show and are wonderful, great information places, or Jason Priester, any of those guys over there, that's when it's reputable. Those guys are members of the media, okay? And, I know I just said that, but not everybody is reputable in the members of the media. But I will say that those guys we mentioned, I will respect and I will reshare those. But it is interesting. There are a lot of people on the other side of things that are saying, it's been very quiet. Maybe he's just not even caring about this at all. But I will say that I would say it's definitely something he needs to entertain, because you can't not entertain a head coaching job. We've known for years that he wants to be a head coach, right? But my thing is, there's 22 players transferring out right now. 22. I looked it up, 24/7. Tennessee, Vols 24/7, sports.com. 22 players transferring out. Now, they did have Hendon Hooker transferring in, but do you really want to coach Hendon Hooker, a guy who quit playing against Clemson because he was cold? And don't tell me he has a condition. The dude quit because he was cold and then transferred the day after. All right. So get out of here with that. Get out of here. He has a condition and it's called he quit. But they got 22 guys leaving. We also assume now, you guys, we don't know what their violations are going to end up being as far as like their penalties. Mm-hmm. But we're assuming they're going to, like Houston said, they're going to self-impose some recruiting restrictions there. So not only are you going to start out with a bunch of players leaving, but you're also going to start out with less players to be able to put on scholarship, which is never a good thing. I mean, because we saw that with USC, and it's taken them forever to kind of rebound from that. Now, obviously, they did have it for a very long time, but we don't know what it's going to be. But what are your thoughts on there? Like, so if you're Tony Elliott, we'll try to put ourselves in his shoes. If you're Tony Elliott, are you really wanting to go into that situation with all these players leaving, with sanctions that are coming? Now, here's what other people on the other side say. Oh, it's Tennessee. Their stadium's huge. Their fan base is rabid. They love football up there. There's Dolly Parton just an hour away. There's so many things that go great there. Let me tell you one thing. You don't want to go there if just for the terrible shade of orange. That's the one reason. I would just go ahead and tell you that. But so if you guys, let's start with that. Does that bother you, the situation you'd be walking into? Because I look at Butch Jones. I mean, he won every bowl game. He had a bunch of winning seasons. It's not good enough to win 9 games at Tennessee. And it's going to be even harder now.
Am I going or are you going on? Okay.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't go. Like, here's my rationale in this. I think Tony Elliott might have had a conversation, or at least his agent probably did. I know that through different channels of credible media, it sounds like there wasn't any real talks. Now, I may be wrong. There may be an offer out. I don't know. But it doesn't sound like there's a lot of smoke. It just sounds like a name got thrown out there. And if I'm him, I wouldn't go. I know it's a big job, but there are better NFL offensive coordinator jobs that he turned down. The Titans, the Seahawks, and the Dolphins are an immensely better job than going to have to rebuild that absolute dumpster in Tennessee. And then on top of that, now there's an emerging candidate, and this is just like 15 minutes ago that I saw this on. I was scrolling through Rivals on Twitter. Josh Heupel has emerged as the leading candidate for Tennessee, apparently, allegedly. Now, if Josh Heupel goes, I could see a scenario if Central Florida opens up, Tony Elliott take that job. You got a lot of talent. They're good. They're the top team in their conference. And as long as you're able to bring in talent and evaluate, that's a way better situation than going to Tennessee and getting a year and a half before people are burning down your door to win. So I think that's a scenario, and I don't think he would take it. It wouldn't be smart. Maybe he wants to subject himself to pain, but I don't think he wants to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions you have to go in there. Do you want to go into a better situation? Do you want to go into a better job or potential job? And in Tennessee, look, we can make fun of Tennessee all we want. It's a good job. It's an SEC job. They've had success in the past. They have the 100,000 fans. They have the rabid fan base. You know, they're in the SEC. We all know how the SEC is the greatest thing in the world, right? So, I mean, it's a good job. And Tony has to be interested in a job like that, if you ask me. And does he want to be a head coach of a college football team, or would he rather be a coordinator in the pros? You got to weigh all that stuff, and that's stuff we don't know the answer to right now. But, yeah, it's an absolute mess. I think he would have to be interested. I think he would have to get some kind of assurance from, the administration at Tennessee. Hey, what kind of timeline are y'all going to give me? Because this is a disaster, and it's going to take several years, not one, not two. It's going to take several years to get this where we want it to go. Are y'all going to be patient enough with me? Are y'all going to be able to let me do things the way I want to do it? I think they're going to have to do a whole culture flop over there at Tennessee. And I think Elliott would be the guy. We've talked on the show. I don't always understand his play calling. I've always said I think he'd make a better head coach than offensive coordinator, and I still believe that. But I don't really know what Tony Elliott is thinking. I don't know whether he wants to step into that situation or whether they're even going to be able to answer any of those questions for him right now. And that's going to kind of be tough to decide what he wants to do. It's going to be difficult for sure.
A lot of unanswered questions, and you just don't want to go into a job with that many unanswered questions, red flags, things like that. I've seen on other places, they say, well, Dabo's going to say, take it. I wouldn't be so sure. I mean, I get the idea, and I think Chris Ard said this on Tiger Illustrated. I get the idea of take the $15 million, and if you suck, it's everybody knew it was Tennessee, and then you can go. Then you can go be the offensive coordinator somewhere else, and you walk away with your big, golden parachute buyout, and you're then an offensive coordinator, or you take a year off and or you go to the NFL or something. But nobody's going to blame you if you go. Nobody's going to really hold it against you if you go there and it doesn't work out. But at least you get that head coaching experience, you get that head coaching pay, and it is for a historically, blue blood, I guess, football program. Even though, like I said, it's just very difficult for me to want to get into something like that. Considering, he's making over $1 million a year at Clemson, a place that he graduated from, a place he's doing great with, and it is different, Head coaching is more about being that figurehead. I think Dabo Swinney does it really well. But as a lot of people mention, we don't need Dabo Swinney calling plays. And it's not just because of the Ohio State game, but we need other people. Dabo Swinney is a great CEO of your program. Now, will Tony Elliott be a great CEO? I don't know. Maybe he's too analytical. Maybe he's more of an engineer. Maybe he likes to scheme things X's and O's wise. But when you're a head coach, you do have to kind of kiss babies and shake hands and, go to the booster club meetings and, put a smile on your face with every single, person you meet down the street. And, it is a lot different than just being the offensive coordinator. But again, I think we all agree, Tony Elliott, great person, great leader, great father, great coach, and man of integrity and a Clemson man, as we mentioned earlier. Same thing with Mike Jones. You're a Clemson man. You're a Clemson man forever. And we will always, always love and respect Tony Elliott wherever he goes. I personally don't want him to go to Tennessee. I agree with Houston in the sense that I would rather see him go. I really would rather have seen him go to the NFL. I'd like to see what he could do. But there was a question, and I'll put a parting out here. This might be one that's might take us a little longer, but final question of the night, fellas. The offense seemed to kind of stall a little bit towards the end of the season. Do you blame that on how the offensive coordinator called the game via, Brandon Streeter being that guy that might replace Tony Elliott in the future? Or Dabo Swinney, for example, being the CEO who had to call certain plays, or was it, we all assume he called certain plays? Or do you think that there's just nothing to that? It was just, that it is what it is. I saw some stuff on some of the message boards saying that it could be that, Clemson offense does need some sort of shot in the arm, at least from some perspective. Not saying that they need to completely gut everything. Let's step back from that. But if Tony Elliott moves on, maybe a fresh pair of eyes could do some things differently, because we know the elite teams seem to have some sort of understanding of what Clemson's going to do before they do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Houston and I have been talking about this for quite some time. We want to see more passes over the middle. We want to see more usage of the tight ends. I think that's something that we've needed, especially this year. I think it was imperative that we use that a lot more this year because we didn't have the alpha guy. We didn't have T. Higgins. We didn't have Justin Ross, Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins. None of those guys were there. Your alpha was Cornell Powell at times, but Amari Rodgers was kind of your guy. That's not the typical alpha receiver Clemson is used to. So the jump balls, they don't work anymore. You got to scheme people open. You got to get them over the middle, sit them in those soft spots in the zone, that kind of thing. And I just don't think Clemson did that very well. I don't think they did it very well this year. I hope they can change things up using going forward and moving on. I like a little more eye candy sometimes, to kind of make people think you might be changing some stuff up. But you can win. You can win either way. Clemson's done it, for years. And I didn't think they had a great route tree, as people like to say. I didn't think they did a lot of different things when they hammered Alabama 44-16. They threw a lot of jump balls, a lot of back shoulder throws, and they seem to work, and that's okay. And that's okay when you have those type of players and you just out talent everybody by that much. But this year, Clemson didn't, especially at the receiver position. I think we could have used a little more scheming people open in this time.
And you make a good point. Quinnen Williams, who was one of the best players in the NFL on the defensive line, played that game at Alabama and said, hey, look, Clemson, all they did was throw the ball up a bunch. And it did work. And I'll pose this question to Houston. I'll give you two questions here, Houston. Alan, you can follow up with an answer too. But with Mr. Number One, Trevor Lawrence, Brett Favre came out recently and said he'd rather take Devonta Smith at that position if he was the Jaguars at the number one position. My thought is, I know that Clemson struggled with the offensive line, but when I went and looked back at some of the plays, the play that was called, we don't really know what would have happened because Trevor Lawrence threw to who he was going to throw to before the snap was even snapped. He already had in his mind, and maybe that's kind of a flaw that we'll hear, in the coming weeks as they get ready for the combine and the NFL and everything and the draft. You're going to start to hear the experts in the NFL start to say, okay, well, Trevor's great and all, but he does have this and this. So Trevor's not perfect. And we talked about this last year about how he only seemed to want to throw to the sideline. And that was a struggle. And then you go back and look at the Ohio State game. There were times where he threw, he knew who he was going to throw to before the ball was snapped. And there were times where, yes, he was getting pressured, but he's athletic enough to roll out, and he didn't. He just rushed it and threw it deep over the guy's head, or threw it too short behind the guy. So I say all that to ask you, Houston, your thoughts that I asked Alan, but also what are some of was some of it Trevor Lawrence's flaws that we don't talk about much because he's so good?
Yeah, it could be a little bit of everything. I think I look back at Deshaun's offense versus Trevor's, and I think the offense was more efficient when you have a quarterback that's a little bit more dual threat, in a sense that, okay, Deshaun is a quarterback who can run and knows situationally when to do it. They have call run plays, but he can also take off. Trevor, most of the time, he's pass first, and then they'll call some runs for him, and whether or not he's locked onto his target or not, or whatever, I don't know. I think Brett Favre saying that he would take Devonta Smith is kind of funny because Brett Favre's in Wrangler commercials for a reason. Let's just say that.
Oh, watch out!
Yeah.
You're gonna offend Alan here.
Yeah, sorry.
Wait, and he's not in Wrangler commercials. He's in
Copperfit. He's in a Copperfit commercial. That's it.
He's probably done some
Wrangler commercials anymore. He's Copperfit. But I think it's a little bit of everything. Look, we can say Tony Elliott didn't do this, and there were games where Tony Elliott may be able to shoulder some blame to it of looking at games like Syracuse, where it's just like, what are we doing for 3 quarters? What is Clemson doing? And then finally, when everything clicks, they go score 20 points in the fourth quarter, where it's almost like they didn't game plan, and then when they had to, they opened it up. Whereas you look at the Notre Dame, both Notre Dame games offensively were great games.
Yes, they were.
Tony Elliott called great games both times against Notre Dame. The first time you knew you couldn't run the ball, you were more comfortable, and outside of that final drive where they couldn't run out the clock, I thought they did great. And then you go the second game and they just hammer them with some creativity. They were able to run the ball. I know that some of the routes were creative, a little bit more drawn out, which I think sometimes can be a problem for Clemson when you have long developing plays, and I think that's something they need to look at. But they worked against Notre Dame because they were able to hold up, and you had Trevor able to throw the ball like he could. So it's a mix of everything. And I think that, Trevor, yeah, he's flawed, yes, but he is undeniably the number 1 pick. And if you don't think that, well, watch him win, you can lose. And then I think with Tony Elliott, look, whoever comes in, whether Tony Elliott goes to Tennessee or UCF or the NFL or wherever, yes, I think, or if Tony Elliott stays, have someone who's open to go get these concepts of opening up the offense, whether that's going to study Joe Brady, Steve Sarkisian, going to study somebody like Andy Reid or Jamie Chadwell, mixing a bunch of concepts up, because I think the way that Clemson can mesh their offense in the time of creativity nowadays, Clemson could come out next year with their wide receiver talent and the depth they have with a bunch of young running backs and a more developed offensive line to have a heck of an offense next year in 2021.
Yeah, I think that, you mentioned Eric Bieniemy. One thing I love watching, and that's the thing, you go watch Alabama and it's like, okay, they're not doing the short pass to the sideline to Amari Rodgers every other play. So sometimes as a Clemson fan, I get kind of cynical with that. I'm like, see, look what they can do.
No, but look at what they did. They ran 2 screenplays in the national championship game to Devontae Smith, and both of them were almost house calls.
Exactly.
I mean, they were. Granted, you watch talent, but
when you watch Devonta Smith, I think anytime he gets the ball, it could go to the house. I mean, the guy is just amazing, and it does go back to what John was saying in the chat. There were a lot of things hamstringing this offense that they could get through in the ACC schedule, but as it got to more difficult competition, it was very hard to kind of mask that and to overcome that with other things. And it just weighed down on Trevor too much and the team as a whole. And they got caught, they started out great in the first quarter and then it just kind of, spiraled from there. But we wish Trevor Lawrence the best. And, obviously he's not perfect, but I do think he's the number 1 pick. And I don't think you can pass up on him at all. I'd love to see what he can do. I also really want to see what Tony Elliott can do with this Clemson offense that's coming in. You've got guys, DJ, 5-star guy, but look at how much EJ Williams stepped up into his role. And then you've got Ladson, who hopefully will be healthy and ready. You've got Ross, who hopefully will be healthy and cleared. And then you got the guys that we talked about with Stellato and some of the new guys coming in that are going to be exciting to see. Definitely interested to see how many yards this offense can put up through the air this year. And also kind of interested to see what the running back position does as well. Got some rumors out there saying they're going to not have a true number 1. They're just going to kind of rotate a ton and just hit you with fresh legs almost every freaking play. Clemson has the horses to do it for sure. That might be pretty lethal as well. Try covering 5 different types of running backs and then one of the best quarterbacks in the nation with some of the best wide receivers in the nation. I think it'll be a good reset for the Tigers. Hopefully COVID kind of passed us, or at least gradually moving past us. The expectation is more people will have the vaccine by the summer. So hopefully the 2021 season will be better. And I look forward to it. But again, we got basketball coming up. As Houston mentioned, we got baseball coming up, softball as well. Thank you so much for joining in. We've got a ton of people still watching. So the best thing that you can do is just hit the like button, the little thumbs up or the love. Somebody's calling me about my home warranty. But The best thing you can do is hit the like button and love button. And then if you have time, share it with a friend on your Facebook or one of your social media accounts. We really appreciate it. But for myself, Alan and Houston, we hope you have a good night. And as always, Tiger fans, we will see you at the top of the hill.